let's talk about complexity theory from Portugal. I'm Cheryl Pocklington. I'm the director of an investigations team with the mining regulator in British Columbia, and we're responsible for investigating serious accidents that may result in fatal, serious injuries, or environmental damage. The investigations we do are not just about looking at the low-hanging fruit, the proximal cause to an event, but we really want to understand what happened and how it came to happen, and we can only do that through understanding the context of how something came to be. I am quite interested in how emerging qualities come from complex systems in terms of designing and promoting the safety of people and the environment, especially in working environments.
If you were to consider occupations from a century or more ago, tasks were simple. Manual tools were used with few competing objectives and influencing conditions, save for some weather or influences from the local community. These are examples of more linear, simple systems. Fast forward to the 21st century, Decker in 2011 and later Larty in 2020 have highlighted that the complexity of environments and organizations is continuously evolving from the influences of never-ending data and technological changes, climate change, political climates, globalization, multiculturalism, regulatory changes, and other unexpected events. To understand these modern environments, theorists have evolved in their thinking as well in attempts to understand the social influences upon how people work, live, and play.
According to Decker in 2011 and Revsky in 2016, complexity explores the interactions between humans and the environment and provides insight into the relationships between the components of the system and social processes. Complexity science is thus interdisciplinary as it integrates both social and biophysical sciences. Complexity theory exhibits several characteristics. Some of these key concepts include nonlinearity and uncertainty. It's non-deterministic and not predictive. It also demonstrates emergence and adaptability. Decker tells us that in contrast to simple systems that have clearly identified parts interacting on the basis of Newtonian cause and effect or natural laws, complex systems are nonlinear and dynamic in that there are many interacting components at varying degrees of dependence. Further, complex systems are also unique in that they experience emergent qualities. The subcomponents interact to self-organize to new features or properties that may not have existed before. Very small, unanticipated changes in the system can lead to large effects. Therefore, complex systems are subject to the sensitivity of their initial conditions, and the changes within their systems are difficult to predict. As outcomes can be varied and infinite, they are non-deterministic and they adapt.
I'd like to highlight this map of complexity theories by Castellani and Gerritz, who began this work in 2009. They describe it as a map of macroscopic, transdisciplinary introduction to the complexity sciences. While Decker reminds us that early systems were captivatingly described by Newtonian natural laws, Castellani and Gerritz capture in their map the evolution of complex systems theory by an incredible number of theorists who have recognized that systems ought not to be explained with simple cause and effect, but rather with recognition of their emergent qualities. Castellani and Gerritz highlight in their graphic that since the 1940s, researchers began recognizing emerging qualities in systems and across 5 major intellectual traditions, namely dynamical systems theory, complex systems theory, cybernetics, and artificial intelligence. Melkert in 2011 outlined that it was biologist Ludwig von Bertalanffy's general system theory who argued that models of closed systems should not be used or applied to living systems, as living systems are open systems that are dependent on information such as feedback.
Regarding other theories and paradigms, I was first struck by the notion of intersectionality, which I first witnessed Crenshaw speak on a related TEDx talk. I found the concept of intersectionality incredibly related to the complex working environments I investigate. I found a real-life example in my present environment which highlights the intersectionality of 2 seemingly independent systems that are not compatible yet may unfortunately interact should conditions change.
Imagine these beautiful grapevines. They're overhead, probably about 10 feet, on posts, and what strings them up is wires that have been woven from post to post to give support to the grapevines as they grow. Now, adjacent to this path, this system for growing and picking grapes, is this other footpath that goes down to the river. It sits at about 10 feet higher, about the same level as the grapevine apparatus, and they run parallel. These are examples of 2 separate and distinct systems. One is not relied upon to use for the other. The footpath on the left goes down to the river, and the footpath on the right, which is 10 feet below, is simply for the management of taking care and picking the grapes. Now imagine a need emerges for these two systems to interact. There's actually a pathway that has been carved in ad hoc between the two pathways, as evidenced on the right here. But unfortunately, what would take people by surprise is the wire that runs almost invisibly along the parallel length between the two pathways, which holds the grapevines up. It's a perfect tripping hazard set at the top of a 10-foot slope that would catch any unsuspecting individual in the shins on their way down. In addition to this example of intersectionality as it relates to safety, on the map by Castellani and Garretts, Walby, Collins, and McCall are referenced in their contributions to intersectionality and complex systems in the 2010s. In addition to intersectionality, by embracing the notion of complex systems and their emergent properties, practitioners avoid applying hindsight bias to make sense of something that has occurred in retrospect and is only understandable by breaking a system into its component parts. This approach aligns with constructivist values whereby the context of the emergent property is considered.
Perhaps my most significant critique of complexity theory is that there is not one theory that researchers have landed on to explain complex adaptive systems. This makes it challenging for students and practitioners to know how to approach their own work on this topic. This is further illustrated in the theory map by Castellani and Garretts. I believe this is a function of the continued evolution of complexity theory. For example, there are several academics like Hollnagel and Decker actively applying these principles to the great work they are doing regarding safety systems. I believe we will see some great strides taken on this topic in the next year or so.
Since at least the 1940s, we can now better appreciate that the total capacity of a complex system is greater than the sum of the capacities of its subcomponents. Emergence materializes as the development of new intelligence or patterns from the bottom up within a complex system. According to Bradshaw and Beckhoff in 2001, with the explicit consideration of humans and ecosystems, traditional disciplinary and organizational boundaries have lost much of their original utility. They argue that while historically the sciences were kept separate, an interdisciplinary approach to integrate the biophysical and total sciences is necessary to include human subjective experience to truly understand systems.
Organizations will need to consider that the systems they operate in are complex. Across disciplines, complexity theory can provide researchers with new methods of inquiry as they look at ways of enhancing research outcomes obtained through traditional methods. For this reason, research on organizations needs to shift from the focus on individual components to the focus on the organization as a whole, due to the interactions among all subcomponents of a complex system. I have filmed this video in this way to show you that unless you have a perfectly closed system, any open system is going to be prone to all the influences of all these other outside factors that you can't possibly anticipate. I hope you've learned a bit about complexity theory and how it applies to the design and management of safe working environments, and I look forward to engaging with you on this topic.